So what if there's not polarity though? So
Yeah.
we talked a little bit about David Deida's work, and I'm like trying so hard to get him on the show, but he doesn't respond. I love all of his books, but
Yeah.
um, from what I've read with his stuff, it's you basically are born into this world with a charge. So it's either
Mhm.
feminine, masculine, or neutral, and then through life. Like for me, for example, this is
Mhm.
like a wonderful example. I have a feminine core, 100%, but
Mhm.
be through my like childhood and like a lot of abuse and being the oldest of three and having to having that parentified relationship with my mom,
Mhm.
I've developed these masculine shells.
Mm.
So I would always be told by like certain people in relationship that I was too masculine and I wasn't allowing the guy to be masculine. But then around other people, they're like,
Mm.
you're the most feminine person I've ever met. Like you're so soft and open and all of these things. So you have to like peel back these things that actually aren't you. And then there's still that core. So even if I
Yeah.
come off as masculine, I still would technically need a masculine charge because my core is feminine,
Yeah.
right? So if that's the case, which I don't know if you like subscribe to that thought that you have one of those three, like
Yeah.
if you
I think
are
that that would make sense. I need to read more about it,
so like if for
but
example like you had a feminine, the idea is like she would never, and I say she because most of the time the feminine
right.
is a woman. It's about 10% that it's actually a man, but she would need a masculine. Like a feminine's
Yeah.
not going to work with a neutral. Like neutrals tend to work best with neutrals or with masculines.
Yeah, I definitely for myself,
Mhm.
I need a masculine.
Mhm.
I have to have that. I feel like because I sexually I am attracted to women, but as far as romantically, there's that masculine energy missing. And I've
Mhm.
even thought to myself, okay, well, like, what if I was with a more masculine woman? And even that isn't,
Mhm.
I don't know what it is about an actual biological man that, I mean, maybe it's just my natural biology that's just like, yeah, that's
Mhm.
what I want. And maybe that's what it is. But it definitely could be a confusing topic because it's like if somebody is like this conversation of the different polarity, maybe that's where some of this like gender identity issue comes from.
Mm.
Or maybe like you said, the 10% of masculine or feminine, 10% of feminine or masculine, and then there's the neutral category.
Mhm.
That could be like kind of a driving factor for that. So it is an interesting topic for sure to talk about how one identifies, but also then you have, like you said, the environmental factors that cause you to act more. Cause I've definitely had moments, I'm very feminine, but I've also had a lot of moments where I've had to act more masculine
Mhm.
because I had to step up and protect myself.
Mhm.
And then learning to not be so masculine. But I also am personally like a believer in like the inner divine union of the masculine and feminine
Mhm.
energies.
Mhm.
I feel more so that everybody has both
I think we both have both.
and
Mhm.
people lean more towards one or the other.
Yeah.
But like for me, like one of my friends, we have this thing. So how much are you in your inner mommy, daddy, or baby?
Mm.
It's like not just masculine and feminine, it's also like your inner child.
Mhm.
And there's been seasons where I've been super baby, where I'm like, I'm in my inner child and I just everybody take care of me and love me. Like I've had that season when I was going through like heartache. I was in my cocoon. I was in my inner baby. And then bringing back online my inner daddy and my inner mommy. It's like, okay, how can I mother myself and father myself and make sure I'm taking care of myself, nurturing myself, but I'm also having structure and a system to flow in my life and I'm keeping myself accountable. Those are more like a little more masculine traits. So it's like you can be super feminine, but if you don't have a container to hold it in, now you're just a puddle on the floor.
Mhm.
So I feel like, and if you're just a child, you're kicking and screaming. So it's like you have to kind of have a balance there. And I think that even bringing in the inner child picture is important too, because that is a foundation of who we are too. And for the longest time, I neglected my inner child. And I felt like I couldn't fully be myself
Mm.
because my inner, I mean, I have this picture of myself and I'm 6 and I'm like at a cheer camp and I'm like winning the spirit award at cheer camp at age 6. And I have this like pink polka dot bandana and like a tutu on. And I'm like very like, I'm me. Like, and
Mhm.
that I connected to that version of myself through therapy and really just asking her what she needed and she needed to be seen.
So were you doing parts work?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that helped me a lot. So
Mm.
it's I feel like it's not just like a one path discovery of the self when it comes to like figuring out that polarity part, because I think there's also other factors.
Mhm.
Like the inner child part, I think is important to me anyways, because I
Mhm.
feel like if someone's out of touch with their inner child, that can show up in a very wounded way as an adult. Even a lot of men that were really like, I mean, a lot of grown men now when they were young boys were like, don't cry, don't do this, just keep going. Like if they fell down, their dad was like, don't cry, be a tough guy. And
Mhm.
now they're grown men and they don't know how to deal with their emotions
Mhm.
because their inner child is neglected.
Mhm.
So I think that's also a factor to consider too. And like when you're identifying your full self and how you show up. And I also think if you're out of touch with your inner child and it's wounded and then you're in a relationship, that's going to come out.
Mhm.
And I forget what the name of the doctor was. It's a book I read. I'll have to send it to you. But basically, he was talking about how in adult relationships, when you're in that space, it's basically each other's inner child trying to get their needs met.
Mhm.
And if you
Mhm.
can look at each other in the middle of a fight as I'm just a child inside that's hurting and I have these unmet needs that I need to face. And yes, I'm going to face them with myself, but can you also see me?
Mhm.
And that can be like a huge key to unlock that synergy of a healthy relationship.
Mhm.
So it's interesting.
No, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. There's this idea, Gabor Mate talks about it a lot, and he
Mhm,
says the parent, like you basically are always looking for your parent in romantic relationships. So boys will look for something that
mhm.
reminds them of their mother, and girls will look for something that looks like their father. And if that was an unhealthy dynamic that you have to bring conscious awareness to it because you're gonna kind of be stuck in this pattern, what I see a lot is people seeing or referring to the shadow as inherently negative,
Mhm,
right? So Jungian psychology, this shadow is just your unconscious drivers. It's not necessarily
mhm.
bad, but for some reason it's been co-opted to mean negative,
Yeah,
right? And it's not. It's just you have these things that kind of influence your behavior and your decisions. You're not aware of it, and like 90% of your brain is unconscious, subconscious, right? So
mm,
you need someone else to pull up that projection for you, like, "This is what I see," and then be able to take that criticism or that insight, like, don't take it personal, and then
yeah,
say, "Do I wanna keep this or do I wanna adjust this?" Basically. So, let's say you are looking for dad, but there's good qualities in that. So,
mhm.
it's not necessarily bad, you just have to look at, are these relationships serving me? Am I in a better place? Am I a better person when I'm in these relationships?